Rayla was born to Tiadrin and Lain in the Silvergrove on July 31st. As a child, she often played in the meadow outside her village and befriended the Adoraburrs. Her parents were members of the Dragonguard, an elite group of 8 elven warriors chosen to protect the Dragon Prince's egg. Due to their duties, her parents entrusted her care to their close friends, Runaan and Ethari, who raised her in their stead. Rayla celebrated Runaan's birthday each year with a picnic in the Moonshadow Meadow, sometimes sneaking Adoraburrs home with her. On one of Ethari's birthdays, Rayla and Runaan worked together to gather some of his favorite gifts, including his preferred flower, the Luna Bloom. Runaan, a Moonshadow elf assassin, began mentoring Rayla in the profession, recognizing her great potential and skill. However, Ethari disapproved of Rayla's training, considering her too kind-hearted to be an assassin. Despite her training, Rayla had not yet killed anyone and was hesitant about the prospect. One day, the Dragon King Avizandum was killed. Rayla's parents were the only members of the Dragonguard who stayed behind to defend the lair, but were ultimately defeated by Viren. Despite their bravery, Rayla, like the rest of Xadia, believed that the egg had been destroyed and that her parents had abandoned their duty, leading her to develop a deep resentment toward them. After the incident, Rayla received a metal lotus from Ethari and joined Runaan and 4 other assassins on a mission to Catolis, where they were tasked with killing King Harrow and Prince Ezrin to avenge the Dragon King and Prince. Echoes of Thunder. During her assignment as one of the assassins tasked by the Dragon Queen to eliminate King Harrow and Prince Ezrin, Rayla surprises a guard on a forest trail during his patrol. Despite pursuing and cornering him, she fails to eliminate him, allowing him to escape and warn of the impending attack. Back at her camp, she confirms her kill, using the red hue of berries to simulate bloodstains on her blades. Later that same day, Rayla pledges her oath to her mission, receiving an assassin's binding to commit herself to success or death. Before the group can depart, however, they're intercepted by an Archangel Lunaris dispatched by Viren, following Rayla's failure to eliminate the witness. Although they manage to evade detection thanks to Runaan's intervention with a magical spell, Rayla loses the respect of her mentor, who laments her incompetence and predicts dire consequences for them all. What is done? Having failed her mission to eliminate the guard, Rayla is barred from participating in the final mission by Runaan. Despite her protests and assurances that she can rectify her errors, she is instructed to stay behind and wait. Resolute to prove herself, Rayla scales the castle walls alone and infiltrates the forest, where she encounters Callum. After successfully cornering him, she inquires about Prince Ezrin's location, disclosing her mission to avenge the Dragon King and his unborn heir. When Callum pretends to be Ezrin, she prepares to strike, only realizing she's been deceived when the real Ezrin emerges from a hidden passage behind a painting. Temporarily blinded by bait, Rayla manages to trail the brothers to a concealed chamber. Before she can act, Ezrin reveals the stolen egg of the Dragon Prince to Rayla, prompting her to acknowledge that this revelation changes everything. Moonrise. Recognizing the urgency of returning the prince's egg to its mother, Rayla clashed with Claudia, who suspected the elves intended to weaponize it. Eventually, she and the egg were escorted by Ezrin, but their journey was interrupted by smoke wolves. Despite Rayla's attempts to fend them off, they proved futile until Callum intervened with a spell that vanquished the creatures. Reaching the rooftop, Rayla implored the princess to hand over the egg so she could present it to her leader and halt the assassination plot. Upon locating Runaan, Rayla endeavored to dissuade him from continuing the mission by revealing the Dragon Prince's egg. However, when Runaan remained resolute, she instructed the boys to take the egg and depart while she confronted him. Realizing Rayla's delay tactic, Runaan pressed on with the attack, prompting Rayla to reunite with Ezrin and Callum. Despite offering to accompany Callum in an attempt to save King Harrow, Ezrin insisted that safeguarding the egg remained their top priority, leading them to flee the castle. Following the completion of the assassination, one of Rayla's bindings turned crimson and fell away, coinciding with the sighting of a shadowhawk in the sky, signifying King Harrow's demise. Bloodthirsty. Continuing their journey, Rayla attempts to remove the binding on her hand without success. Soon, the tolling bells from the castle confirm what she already suspects. The king is dead. In the morning, she enlightens Callum about the magic of the primal stones and spellcasting. When Callum recalls seeing the symbols before, he proposes visiting the Banther Lodge. Initially hesitant due to the need to keep moving, Rayla eventually agrees after some persuasion. Upon reaching the Winter Lodge, she receives a picture indicating the cube's location and enters through an open window. Shortly after, Callum warns her about his aunt Amaya and armed guards. Rayla reaches the game room but is swiftly attacked and rendered unconscious by Amaya. Awakening in restraints, she insists she's alone when Amaya interrogates her about her friend's whereabouts. Spotting bait descending the shaft, she shields her eyes and frees herself. As they attempt to flee, they're cornered. Seeing Callum communicate with his aunt in sign language, Rayla is horrified by his translated words. Pretending, she holds her weapons to the boys' throats and warns Amaya that any advancement will result in their deaths. Exploiting the soldiers' hesitation, she guides them to a nearby boat. Once they're out of danger, Rayla expresses her hurt feelings to Callum, berating him for his hurtful words. Despite his attempts to apologize and explain, she remains upset, tossing him the cube and bitterly remarking that she hopes it was worth the risk. An empty throne. Rayla awakens as Callum places the cube near her face, warning him of potential consequences if he persists. He observes that one of these symbols glows in her presence. Annoyed, Rayla sets off to search for food, unaware that Ezrin has already brought some. Mistaking a sack of hard bread for clubs, she declines to eat when she sees how tough it is. Responding to Callum's cries for help, she returns to find him attempting to cast a lightning spell but struggling to complete it. Rayla informs him of a trigger word in Ancient Draconic and offers her limited knowledge of the language. Despite her warning against tossing the stone, Callum does so, resulting in Rayla being singed when she catches it. As the group continues towards Zadia by boat, Rayla displays hesitance. The boys realize she's afraid of water, though she denies it and boards the boat. In an effort to bond, Callum questions her about Zadia, prompting Rayla to explain the prevalence of magic in her world compared to the natural world of theirs. However, when he asks about her parents, she abruptly ends the conversation by stating they are deceased. Their boat encounters rapids, where Rayla admits her fear of water. Eventually, they reach a lake where they're attacked by a leviathan. Despite her relief at being on solid ground, Rayla ventures back into the water to save her friends. On dry land again, she confesses that Moonshadow elves are forbidden to show fear and reveals her parents are actually alive, though she wishes otherwise due to their perceived failure in protecting the Dragon Prince's egg. Despite reassurances, Rayla watches the boat drift away with a sense of relief, thanking Callum for allowing her to continue on foot. When Callum notices her fiddling with her binding, she explains that she wears it for decorative purposes before they resume their journey. Through the ice. Due to her binding, Rayla struggles to sleep and is alerted by movement. Investigating, she encounters a deer before being ambushed by Corvus. Amidst the struggle, she asserts her friendship with the princes and their voluntary decision to accompany her. However, when Corvus accuses her of regicide, Rayla denies the allegation. Upon learning the truth, Corvus pursues her, leading to a confrontation where he questions the prince's perception of her deceit. Despite momentarily losing him, Rayla continues to guide the boys through rugged terrain, offering to carry the egg, which Callum declines until she divulges the whole truth. Taking a break, Rayla discovers her moonberry juice missing, consumed entirely by bait, and realizes they left their bread behind. With no alternative, they press on up the mountain. Another offer to carry the egg is rebuffed by Callum, sparking a heated argument where Rayla expresses frustration, claiming she could have left at any time but remains committed to the prince's roles in ending the war. Their dispute is interrupted by Ezrin's warning of an impending avalanche caused by bait. As the mountainside begins to shift, they attempt to outrun it, with Rayla's binding tightening as she reaches for Ezrin. Despite Callum's attempt to use the Aspiro spell to halt the avalanche, it proves insufficient. Following the avalanche, the group finds themselves on a frozen lake. Witnessing Ezrin and the Dragon Prince in peril, Rayla joins Callum in attempting to rescue them from the fracturing ice. As Callum passes her the egg, Rayla confides in them, admitting that she doesn't deserve their trust and recounts earlier events, including the truth about her assassin's binding ribbon. She discloses to Callum the consequences she faces if she doesn't fulfill her mission to end Ezrin's life, risking her own hand. However, both Callum and Ezrin express gratitude for her honesty. Rayla endeavors to share more about their father, but the cracking ice interrupts. Struggling to grasp the egg due to her injured hand, Rayla accidentally drops it, watching in horror as Ezrin plunges into the icy water to retrieve it. Restraining Callum, she insists that they trust Ezrin's judgment and senses a connection with him through her binding. Leveraging this bond, she locates Ezrin and the egg beneath the ice and frees them. Relief washes over both Rayla and Callum upon finding the young prince safe, but they're troubled by the fading life force of the egg. The dagger and the wolf. Resting in a cave, Rayla tends to Ezrin's cold, but feels disheartened as the egg's condition deteriorates. They resolve to seek aid in a nearby town come morning. Aware of the deep-seated mistrust humans harbor toward her kind, Rayla adopts a disguise before entering the town. Upon arrival, they encounter a man issuing challenges, and Rayla, disguised, is selected as a contender. However, a larger opponent named Alan intervenes. Recognizing the weapon used by the challenger, Tristan, Rayla enlightens Callum and Ezrin about its origin as a Sunforge blade crafted by Sunfire elves. This blade, she explains, remains scorching hot for centuries and possesses unparalleled cutting ability. Hoping the blade could sever her wrist binding, Rayla sets off to locate Tristan while the boys seek assistance for the egg, arranging to rendezvous at the statue. Pursuing Tristan, who mistakenly believes she's after his money, Rayla clarifies her true intention, to utilize his blade to remove her binding. Her hopes are dashed when the attempt fails, and Tristan uncovers her true identity. Reuniting with Ezran and Callum, Rayla discloses the possibility of losing her hand. Relief washes over her upon learning of a healer capable of aiding both the egg and her hand, albeit residing in the cursed caldera. However, she neglects to mention Tristan's discovery, prompting the trio's hasty retreat up the mountain. Cursed caldera. Embarking on their ascent up the mountain, Rayla encounters Ellis and Ava, who are acquaintances of the princes and offer assistance in locating the healer. However, Ellis cautions them about the unimaginable perils awaiting them. When Callum devises a strategy, Rayla corrects him, explaining that Claudia's incantation for the lightning spell, misheard as fool, actually translates to fulminus in ancient Draconic, signifying lightning. As they continue their ascent, the group stumbles upon a deceased creature, slain by a massive leech. Their attempt to combat it fails, leading to a chaotic dispersal, forcing Rayla and Ezran to seek refuge in a tree. During their wait for the leech to depart, Rayla tentatively opens up to Ezran about her predicament, revealing her internal struggles. Ezran interprets this as a demonstration of her compassion and empathy, expressing contentment in their friendship and finding value in the sacrifice of her hand, believing her fortunes will improve once it's gone. Believing the coast clear, Rayla and the group are caught off guard as the creature launches a surprise attack. After everyone fulfills their roles, Rayla moves in for the decisive strike, but hesitates momentarily. Summoning her courage, she delivers the final blow, relieved to survive the encounter. However, she finds herself covered in miniature leeches until Callum dispels them with magic. Arriving at the designated meeting point with the healer, they're dismayed when Ezran reveals that there is no healer present. Wonderstorm. As Callum reprimands Ezran, Rayla offers him an opportunity to clarify. Upon hearing Ezran's assertion that he can communicate with animals, Rayla believes him, trusting his integrity and presses forward. When Callum observes the moon rune beginning to glow, Rayla attributes it to their proximity to the moon. Initially disregarding distant moans, Rayla investigates upon Ezran's suggestion that someone may require aid. Locating the source, she encounters an individual ensnared in spiderwebs, urging her to flee. Cutting the webs, she's horrified to find only dust. Rejoining the group, they proceed until they encounter a colossal spider. Despite Ezran's inability to sense its presence, Rayla, concurring with him, dismisses it as unreal. Arriving at the tree described by Ellis, Rayla verifies his accuracy. The purported healer turns out to be Lujan, a Moonshadow elf mage. Allowing her to examine the egg, Rayla learns that the only chance for its survival is to hatch it amidst a storm, a highly improbable scenario. Rayla initially blames herself for the egg's condition until comforted by Ezran, who enlightens her about the requisite conditions for a sky dragon's hatching. Witnessing Callum destroy the Sky Primal Stone, initiating a storm, Rayla, despite her injured hand, resolves to rescue the egg. Plunging into the tempest, she transports the egg to the storm's epicenter. In a burst of color and lightning, the egg hatches, revealing the Dragon Prince Ozymandias, much to Rayla's delight. Her joy intensifies when Zim liberates her from the binding ribbon. Book 2. Sky. A Secret and a Spark. Interrupting Callum, who is composing a letter to his father regarding their journey, Rayla hesitates to disclose the news. Delighting in the restoration of her hand, she encourages everyone to depart, a sentiment echoed by Lujan, citing the pursuit of dark forces. Rayla accedes to one more day's stay, urging vigilance as she takes charge of patrolling. While canvassing the perimeter, she encounters the illusory giant spider but remains unfazed, moving on. Continuing until fatigue sets in, she plucks a rose before drifting off to sleep on the ground. Half Moon lies. She awakens and narrowly evades Soren's ambush, her flower's thorn aiding her defense as they engage in combat until Callum intervenes, halting the altercation. By morning, she interposes herself between Claudia and Zim, elucidating their mission to return to Zadia with the prince, sensing a hidden agenda. Attempting to disclose the truth about the king to Callum, she's interrupted by Claudia. Observing Soren's unusual behavior, she persuades him to descend via the zipline. Expressing her reservations about the duo, she finds Callum's disbelief disheartening, realizing that they lack the same bond. Dispirited, Rayla seeks counsel from Lujan, who advises her to divulge the whole truth to Callum despite her apprehensions. While awaiting Callum at Moonhen, she's relieved to have the opportunity to converse with him, but upon seeing him in tears, she realizes it may be too late. Smoke and mirrors. Observing Callum's distress, Rayla attempts to apologize for her delayed revelation, but is halted by the step-prince, who departs to relay the news to Ezran, while she continues to express regret. Upon their reunion, Callum forgives her, recognizing her reluctance to cause him pain, just as he couldn't bring himself to hurt his brother. Witnessing Callum come to terms with his father's death, they share a heartfelt embrace. Later, Claudia approaches them, seeking a private conversation with Callum. Rayla expresses surprise at Claudia's unexpected sincerity in not manipulating Callum into returning home, but is alarmed when Claudia expresses a desire to join them. Aware of potential betrayal, Rayla heeds Callum's advice on discerning their true intentions. Seeking Lujan's assistance in proving Claudia's motives, they prepare to depart by morning. Playing along with Soren, Rayla notices Claudia's suspicion, and with Alice and Ava's assistance, they unveil the illusions Claudia had perceived. With the Fofo's aid, they evade the duo's grasp. Rayla rejoices in her vindication but comforts Callum, who remains unsettled by their encounter, urging him to cherish the present moment as they soar through the night sky. Voyage of the Ruthless. Continuing their journey, Rayla observes Callum behaving unusually and inquires about his activities, learning that he's attempting to connect with the Sky Arcanum through meditation, which she finds tedious. Suddenly, she notices their altitude dropping and prepares for a crash landing as Fofo's energy dwindles, managing to save Zim and Ezrin from falling. Pressing on, Rayla recognizes the necessity of crossing the bay to reach Zadia, but Callum suggests an alternate route. Despite her apprehension, she resolves to brave the water once more, acknowledging its efficiency. Arriving at a coastal village, they seek a captain willing to ferry them across, prompting Rayla to disguise herself as a human to avoid prejudice. Instructed by Callum to wait with Zim and Bait, she watches skeptically as Ezrin and Callum negotiate with the captain. Upon meeting Captain Villeds, who is blind, Rayla learns they must navigate through a storm to reach their destination. Despite feeling seasick during the voyage, they eventually reach land. Witnessing Callum's determination to confront the storm and learn magic, she cautions him against risking Zim's safety. However, she reluctantly relents, warning Callum that she'll hold him responsible if anything happens to Zim. Upon Callum's return, she learns that the dragon was struck by lightning, but was unharmed. Proud of Callum's decision not to pursue magic at the cost of Zim's well-being, she commends him for prioritizing what was right. Breaking the seal. Once the storm subsides, Rayla re-embarks on the Ruthless, but her seasickness persists. She finds solace when Villeds mentions land, though her relief wanes upon learning that another day of travel is required to reach it. Heart of a Titan. Continuing on their journey, Rayla engages in conversation with Villeds, who remarks on the uniqueness of her name. She explains that her parents had a penchant for unusual names, to which Villeds reciprocates with a similar sentiment about his own. Expressing her uncertainty about her future path, especially considering her struggles as an assassin, Rayla receives insightful advice from Villeds. He compares life to a river, full of unpredictable twists and turns, but believes that understanding oneself and one's principles will inevitably guide one to their destined path. Rayla is deeply moved by his wisdom, initially expecting triviality, but finding profound beauty in his words. As Villeds drifts off to sleep, Rayla's words are entrusted to him by Birdo to relay upon his awakening. Upon reaching land, Rayla witnesses the silhouette of a dragon soaring above the clouds. Fire and Fury. Taking a break in a nearby cave, Rayla discovers Callum experimenting with the Primal Cube, expressing his progress toward learning magic. Curious about her own abilities, Rayla elucidates that her connection is rooted in the moon's energy. She also expresses the complexity of entering Zadia, highlighting the necessity of a specific approach. While asleep, she is roused by the roar of a dragon attacking a village and witnesses its fall. Discovering the wounded creature, Rayla's instinct is to defend it from approaching soldiers, but Callum advises against it, citing their outnumbered position. Reluctantly, she departs, feeling conflicted and recalling Callum's earlier counsel. Resolving to act on her conviction, Rayla decides to return to Zadia, entrusting the safety of Zim to the brothers should she not return. Infiltrating the Crown Guard camp, Rayla begins freeing the dragon from its restraints until thwarted by Soren. Surrounded by soldiers, her situation seems dire until Callum intervenes, employing dark magic to aid Rayla and the dragon. However, the exertion leaves Callum weakened, prompting Rayla to carry him away from the escalating conflict. The Book of Destiny. As Rayla carries Callum back, she becomes frustrated with his use of dark magic and observes his weakened state, realizing he cannot travel. Arriving at their cave, Rayla hears Callum express discomfort, prompting her to reprimand him again for resorting to dark arts. She remains vigilant, but upon detecting someone approaching, she demands they reveal themselves. It turns out to be Corvus, sent by the boy's aunt to locate them. Assessing that Corvus poses no threat, Rayla allows him to speak with Ezrin, who is shocked to learn the truth about his identity. Rayla attempts to console Ezrin, apologizing for the deception, but he notices her missing ribbon, implying the truth she shares with Callum. Witnessing Ezrin's distress, Rayla watches as he walks away alone. Observing Corvus's unease, she advises him to find Ezrin while she tends to Callum, who is experiencing a fevered dream. Upon Corvus's return, Rayla learns of Ezrin's supposed fate, initially horrified, but soon realizing the absurdity of the claim. She enlightens Corvus about his ability to communicate with animals, deducing that he must have ridden on a banther rather than being devoured by one. As she continues to care for Callum, she witnesses his distress and, despite her disapproval of his use of dark magic, reassures him that he will overcome his affliction, expressing concern for his well-being. Breathe. Observing Callum's deteriorating condition, Rayla is overcome with emotion, tearfully pleading for him to hold on. Clasping him tightly, she retracts her previous statements about his use of dark magic, now solely wishing for his recovery. Sensing his life slipping away, she nearly confesses her feelings for him until Callum suddenly awakens. Bewildered by his claim to understand the Sky Arcanum, Rayla witnesses him perform the Aspiro spell without the aid of a primal stone. Relieved to see Ezran unharmed, she introduces Callum to Corvus, who updates him on recent events. However, the conversation is interrupted by Ezran's decision to return home, a choice Rayla respects, confident that they will reunite since she knows where he lives. Approaching the kingdom's dividing line, a lava bridge, Rayla stops Callum from advancing recklessly, opting to wait for the moon to reveal the correct path. With Zim's telepathic link to Ezran guiding them, the duo crosses into Zadia. Yet, Rayla's apprehension grows as they encounter a dragon named Sol Regum. Book 3, Sun. Sol Regum. Rayla briefs Callum on the presence of Sol Regum, realizing that engaging in combat with the dragon is not feasible. Opting for stealth, she educates her companion on the necessity of evading the Elder Dragon's acute senses of hearing and smell. However, their attempt to move is thwarted when Zim becomes frightened, alerting Sol Regum and forcing them to conceal themselves. Desperate, Rayla appeals to the former Dragon King, presenting Zim as proof of their peaceful intentions. While Sol Regum permits her and the Dragonling to proceed, he refuses entry to Callum. Despite this, Rayla insists on staying with Callum, attempting to persuade Sol Regum of his inherent goodness. However, Sol Regum's opinion abruptly shifts upon detecting dark magic within Callum, prompting the group to hide once more. As Callum resigns himself to his fate, Rayla reassures him, highlighting Sol Regum's limited use of fire breath. Ingeniously, she suggests using Callum's scarf as bait, successfully diverting the dragon's attention. Yet their plan is disrupted when Rayla becomes trapped beneath rubble. Through Callum's Aspiro spell, they manage to immobilize the dragon and proceed further into Zadia. The Crown. As they journey through the forests, Rayla warmly welcomes Zim to his homeland, offering him a piece of fruit and contemplating seeking assistance from her own kind. At Callum's urging, she agrees to take a moment to appreciate their surroundings, which leads to a playful prank involving a foul-smelling flower. Continuing on their way, Rayla promises Callum a surprise if they reach the meadow by dusk. Upon arrival, she reminisces about her childhood visits to the meadow, where she would befriend creatures like the Adoraburrs. Puzzled, Callum reveals a surprise as Rayla tosses a fluffy ball his way, revealing it to be an Adoraburr. Delighted by their cuteness, Callum finds himself covered in the creatures, prompting laughter from Rayla, who jokingly suggests it's a good look for him. As Callum stands up, covered head to toe in Adoraburrs, he wonders if they'll come off. Ghost. Rayla's home, the Silvergrove, remains concealed behind an illusion. She elaborates to Callum that a special ritual is necessary to see through it, likening it to possessing a magical key. Both Callum and Rayla must participate in the ritual together to unlock this magic key. Upon entering the Silvergrove, they find that the Moonshadow elves cannot see their faces, and the other elves are entirely unaware of their presence, rendering them like ghosts, magically banished from recognition. Seeking out Ethari, Runaan's spouse, Rayla reveals to Callum that Runaan and Ethari were her parents' closest friends, who raised her after her parents joined the Dragonguard. While conversing with Ethari, Rayla's reflection is visible in a sword he's crafting, prompting him to disclose that the Moonshadow elves believe she abandoned the assassins, leading to their demise. Distraught, Rayla rushes out, and Callum discovers her at a secluded pool. Rayla explains that the only remaining magical metal lotus floating in the water signifies her survival among the assassins. When Moonshadow elves embark on perilous missions, Ethari enchants a metal lotus for each assassin, which remains aglow and afloat as long as the assassin lives. Ethari joins Rayla at the pool, offering his hand to briefly break the spell. They share an embrace, and Rayla recounts the events that transpired. Ethari is overjoyed to see Zim alive, regarding it as a miracle. Callum attempts to disguise himself as an Earth Blood Elf, which Rayla discourages. Nonetheless, Ethari warmly accommodates him, humoring his disguise. He provides them with 2 mounts for their journey, and pledges to convey the news to the ailing Dragon Queen that her offspring survives, and is being escorted home by Rayla and a human. The Midnight Desert. Still reeling from the shock and sorrow of her banishment, Rayla maintained a somber silence throughout their journey out of the forest. When Callum attempted to coax her into expressing her feelings, she warned him of a potential big feeling on the side of his head if he persisted. Similarly, she issued a stern threat to Nyx, brandishing her blades to deter the Skywing elf from obstructing her path. Upon boarding the Ambler, Rayla persisted with the silent treatment, even disregarding Callum's attempts at conversation. However, during their night's rest at the Oasis, she finally succumbed to her emotions, breaking down into tears as she walked away towards the pond, hoping to conceal her distress from Callum. Despite her efforts, he approached her, prompting her to rebuff him and conceal her vulnerable state, attributing her turmoil to her banishment. Yet, Callum responded by urging her to silence her self-deprecating remarks and instead highlighting her positive attributes, even humorously remarking on her wit, eliciting a rare laugh from Rayla. However, their moment of intimacy turned awkward following an unexpected kiss, leading Rayla to issue a warning against divulging the incident under threat of dire consequences. Yet, their brief respite was shattered when Nyx seized Zim and fled from the Oasis when they were distracted. Heroes and masterminds. Perplexed by Nyx's betrayal, Rayla urges Callum to pursue her swiftly. He informs Rayla that Nyx has released their moon mounts. Rayla spots them outside and calls to them. While the Shadowpaw responds promptly, the Moonstrider, spooked by the Soulfang serpents, remains outside. Rayla ventures out in a bid to rescue her mount but arrives too late. Barely escaping the Soulfang's venomous bite herself, Rayla hurries back to the Oasis. She and Callum are compelled to wait until dawn before setting out to intercept Nyx and Zim. The following day, Rayla employs Corvus's tracking expertise to locate Nyx and her Ambler. Confronting Nyx alongside Callum, the Skywing Elf flees with Zim. However, Zim's magic forces Nyx to crash. Surrounded by Soulfang serpents, Nyx faces peril, prompting Rayla to reluctantly come to her aid. Despite their previous confrontation, Rayla agrees to allow Nyx to guide them to the other side of the Midnight Desert. As they journey on the Ambler, Rayla and Callum share a kiss, marking the beginning of their romantic relationship. Thunderfall. Awakened by Nyx, Rayla and Callum learn that they've arrived at their destination. Before parting ways, Nyx informs them that the dragon's lair is known as the Stormspire, and warns them of the thin air at high altitudes. As they prepare to climb, Nyx somberly reveals to Callum that what they had seen earlier was not a statue, but Zim's father. Their reunion is interrupted by Fofo's arrival with Ezrin on her back, much to Rayla's delight. Witnessing Callum's somber demeanor, Rayla hears from him about the Dragon King's involvement in the boy's mother's fate, and the subsequent actions of Viren and Harrow. Despite the heavy history, Rayla empathizes with Callum's conflicted emotions towards Avizandum. Observing the bond between the two future kings as they play together, Rayla perceives Ezrin and Zim as beacons of hope for the future. Hearts of Cinder. Rayla, alongside Team Zim, reaches the base of the Stormspire, Zubia's abode, the Queen of the Dragons. Callum remarks on the unlikely location for a dragon's lair halfway up the mountain, to which Rayla affirms exactly, right at the top. They commence their ascent, prompting Callum to inquire whether they'll disclose their relationship to the Dragon Queen upon reaching the summit. Rayla humorously dismisses the idea, suggesting it won't be a topic of conversation. Callum jests about keeping it a secret, akin to a forbidden romance, to which Rayla playfully shushes him, implying that the Dragon Queen must never find out, placing a finger on his lips. They share a lighthearted moment before continuing their climb. Soon they stumble upon an arch inscribed with elven text. Rayla translates it as "prepare to draw your last breath," adding an ominous note to their journey. As they ascend further, their breathing becomes labored. Rayla suggests a brief rest, but Ezrin insists they press on without pause. Despite their fatigue, both Rayla and Callum reluctantly comply. However, exhaustion overtakes them and they collapse. Rayla catches Callum before they both fall, expressing that it's too much. They lose consciousness, but Ezrin, aided by Pyrrha the dragon, learns a spell, Ventus Spiralis, which Callum uses to revive them. Upon awakening, Callum reassures Rayla and they share a kiss, surprising Ezrin and Bait. Callum reveals their relationship, stunning the two. Resuming their journey, they finally reach the summit of the Stormspire, where they encounter a Skywing Elf. Rayla proudly announces the mission's success, presenting Ozymandias, the Dragon Prince. However, the elf informs them that they are too late for something significant. Dragonguard. The elf, Ibis, clarifies that the Dragon Queen, Zubia, isn't deceased but has been unconscious for 10 days. Leading the group to her, Ibis introduces himself. Gazing sadly at Zubia's slumbering form, Rayla accompanies them. Returning to the cave outside of the Dragon Queen's lair, Rayla sits down, overcome with emotions. Callum checks on her and she confides in him, recounting the painful memories of her parents' flight and its consequences. Holding hands, they share a moment of solace. Later, Ezrin ascends the Stormspire with Pyrrha and a collapsed Sorin, urgently seeking Callum and Rayla's assistance. Rayla's surprised reaction to seeing him prompts Ezrin to insist on helping Sorin. Witnessing Callum's use of the Ventus Spiralis spell to revive Soren, Rayla questions his presence. Soren warns them of imminent danger, revealing that his father Viren is marching with an army of enchanted soldiers, augmented and enraged, armed with formidable claws. After Callum converses with Ibis, Rayla jokingly asks if he managed to learn any cool sky spells from him. He shares that Ibis advised them to depart, suggesting that every decision they've made aimed to safeguard Zim. Though she crosses her arms, Rayla concurs with this assessment. Asserting her decision, she declares she won't accompany him, feeling compelled to stay. She believes her parents' actions initiated all that unfolded, compelling her to stay and defend the Dragon Queen. Despite Callum's emotional plea against facing an entire army alone, Rayla acknowledges the likelihood of her demise, considering it a price her parents should have paid long ago. Handing him her necklace as a keepsake, she bids him farewell with a kiss and a hug. He questions if her resolve is merely fueled by pride, urging her to reconsider. She explains it transcends pride, delving into her core identity. Disagreeing, he attributes it to guilt, advising her to release it. Rejecting his counsel, she insists he misunderstands her deeply ingrained values. Storming out to the summit of the Storm Spire, she leaves him behind. Callum employs magic to unveil the truth about Rayla's parents, revealing they valiantly fought Viren to protect Zim's egg. Tiadrin cunningly persuaded Viren to spare the egg's life. Finding Rayla at the summit, he shares his discovery despite her initial reluctance to discuss. Surprised by his sketch depicting their vision, she acknowledges his genuine insight. Learning of her parents' courage, Rayla embraces Callum gratefully, seeking guidance on their significance. He affirms it's her decision alone. Rayla suggests they decide together. During the group discussion, Soren argues against fleeing, emphasizing Viren's growing power. Rayla, moved by his plea, acknowledges her misjudgment, recognizing Soren's depth beyond appearances. They unite to confront Viren. Ibis leads them outside, where they encounter Amaya and Sunfire Elf Janai on a twin-tailed inferno-toothed tiger. Amaya initially regards Rayla with suspicion, but Callum clarifies the Banther Lodge incident as a misunderstanding, portraying Rayla as a friend. Rayla offers a tentative wave. They watch as Ibis and Ezrin depart on Pyrrha to seek further aid. Reflecting on the moment, Callum remarks, "This is it, huh?" And Rayla agrees, holding his hand and affirming, "This is it." The final battle. At sunrise on the day of the battle, Rayla meets Callum at the apex of the Storm Spire, teasing him about his attempts at summoning wings. Despite intending to express his feelings to her, knowing that it might be their final day, their conversation is cut short by Soren summoning them to discuss the battle plan. Later, during the strategy meeting, Rayla decides to protect Ozymandias, earning her title of the last Dragonguard from Janai. Noticing Zim's anxiety as he prepares to confront his mother, Rayla encourages him to approach Sabia, cautioning him about her deep slumber. Witnessing Zim's futile attempts to awaken his mother, she remains by his side until Viren breaches the spire. With Bate's help, Rayla breaks free from the ice prison cast by Viren and rushes to the summit. There, she intervenes to prevent Viren from draining Zim's essence, tackling him off the cliff. Callum, driven by fear for her safety, conjures mage wings to save her. In flight, they declare their love before returning to the Storm Spire. Following their victory celebration and Ezrin's reinstatement as king, Rayla witnesses Zobia's awakening, signifying peace between the nations as she holds Callum's hand. Dear Callum. While Rayla anticipates Callum's upcoming 15th birthday with joy, she laments missing the celebration as she prepares to embark on her quest to hunt down Viren. Writing her letter, she reflects on the necessity of white lies and safeguarding loved ones and pleads with Callum not to resent her choice. Aware that waking him would only lead to attempts to dissuade her, she recalls her parents' departure to join the Dragonguard, viewing her own departure as a protective gesture for Callum. She expresses hope for future shared birthday celebrations and promises to hold him in her thoughts with every full moon, reaffirming her love for him multiple times as she concludes the letter. Chasing Shadows, Part 1. Rayla and Stella ventured towards Scumport in the anticipation of gathering information about Viren's location. Yet their inquiries among the local merchants are met with resistance, drawing the attention of two tidebound elf enforcers. Poised for confrontation, Rayla finds aid in an elder Moonshadow elf pirate named Redfeather, who guides her to her abode. Redfeather suggests she possesses knowledge about Viren and offers assistance in exchange for a favor from Rayla. Chasing Shadows Part 2. Rayla agrees to fulfill Redfeather's request, which involves winning 3 matches in the fighting pit located within Leviathan's bones. They discuss Darius's previous victories and losses against Feathers and Elmer, respectively, with Rayla criticizing Finnegrin's reliance on others to fight on his behalf, branding him a coward. Redfeather discloses Finnegrin's ability to manipulate others to enforce his commands, sparing him from direct confrontation. Rayla emerges victorious against her Earthblood Elf and Tidebound Elf opponents, earning the nickname New Moon from the impressed audience. However, her focus wavers when faced with a human opponent from Katalis, leading to her defeat in the 3rd round as thoughts of Callum distract her. Despite this setback, she receives Finnegrin's favor, a wooden token, as recognition for her triumphs. Disappointed by Rayla's failure in the final round, Redfeather expresses frustration upon their return home. Rayla, determined to obtain knowledge about Viren, offers her token in exchange for such knowledge. Redfeather proposes another task involving the retrieval of dark magic ingredients, to which Rayla reluctantly agrees. Chasing Shadows, Part 3. Rayla and Stella observe a secretive exchange along Scumport's northern coast between a dark mage and a winged skywing elf. Convinced that the dark mage is Viren, Rayla pursues and subdues him, only to discover that he's actually a young boy from Nealandia. The boy explains that he purchased a blood coral from the skywing elf to aid other humans before fleeing. Despite their disappointment, Rayla and Stella manage to retrieve a small fragment of the blood coral to present to Redfeather. Reflecting on her mistake, akin to her experience in the fighting pit, Rayla realizes her place is with Callum and resolves to reunite with him. Recognizing Rayla's determination, Redfeather provides her with a token for the ferryman, facilitating her journey back. Second Saga, Book 4, Earth, Fallen Stars. 2 years after her departure on Callum's birthday, Rayla makes a surprise return to Katalis, appearing unexpectedly in Callum's study accompanied by her new companion, Stella the Cuddle Monkey, which leaves him utterly astonished. Breathtaking. Feeling the sting of Rayla's prolonged absence, Callum initially rebuffs her attempts to reconnect, expressing a desire to retire for the night. Despite his resistance, she eventually persuades him to engage in conversation, only to share her disappointment in not being able to locate Viren after over 2 years of searching. Introducing Stella to Callum as her newfound companion, she explains that she's taken on the role of her caregiver since Stella was orphaned. Although they avoid discussing their feelings or past events, Rayla is allowed to remain by Callum's side throughout the night. The following morning, as Callum sleeps, Rayla reflects on her regret for being absent for so long, consumed by her quest for revenge, and losing sight of the importance of their relationship. Respecting his need for rest, she departs once again. Later, at the Valley of Graves, Rayla reveals herself to Ezrin after the welcoming ceremony for Zubia and Ozymandias. It's during this time that they witness an apparition of the late Ibis, who warns them of the return of the fallen star to the world. Through the Looking Glass. Rayla's lapse in memory regarding Ibis's name earns her a rebuke from Callum, who expresses disbelief at her forgetfulness considering they fought alongside him at the Stormspire. When she tries to justify her uncertainty, he implies that she might have remembered if she had been with them for the past 2 years. Their disagreement is interrupted by Zubia, who announces her intention to return to Zadia immediately to investigate the threat of the fallen star. Ezrin decides to accompany her, inviting Rayla to join them, and the entire Team Zim agrees to journey back to Zadia. En route, Zubia recounts the history of the fallen star, explaining how the Star-Touch elf Erebos corrupted human mages to serve his own purposes. Upon reaching the Stormspire, the group discovered the deceased elf Ibis, killed by Terry, the Earthblood elf who's Claudia's boyfriend, in a confrontation over Viren's relic staff. Zim is deeply affected by the loss, prompting Rayla and Ezrin to offer him a comforting embrace. They proceed to Zubia's lair, where Callum reveals the looking glass he brought, recognized by Zubia as a tool to view the interior of Erebos' prison. Rayla watches in horror as Erebos uses the connection to possess Callum. He taunts them individually, ridiculing Rayla as the Moonshadow assassin who, can this be right, isn't capable of killing, before proclaiming his inevitable return and shattering the mirror with a blown kiss. The Great Gates. At the peak of the Stormspire, Rayla reminisces about her daring leap from its heights, recalling how Callum conjured magical wings to rescue her, a memory that moves him to tears. She offers to talk with him, but their conversation is cut short by Soren's announcement of a meeting. Zubia convenes the meeting, recognizing the threat posed by someone aiding Erebos' potential release. Soren suspects Claudia's involvement, given her alignment with her father's agenda and the discovery of her bracelet in her cave. Rayla ponders the challenge of locating someone who she has struggled to find for 2 years, concluding that Claudia must be seeking Erebos' prison, providing a clue to her whereabouts. To uncover the location of Erebos' prison, the group seeks the Archdragon Rex Igneous at Umber Tor. However, accessing him requires navigating the Drakewood's treacherous depths, home to the Drake Riders who cast intruders into the Pit of Despair. Rayla cautions the group to remain hidden while she scouts for the entrance alone. Soren insists on accompanying her, refusing Rayla's request for Callum's company due to his unresolved feelings. As they journey onward, Soren broaches the topic of Callum's emotions regarding Rayla's return, urging her to address the tension she's caused and to work through the weirdness. Before delving deeper into their conversation, they encounter Warlon, a Drakerider elf, exhibiting a captive dragon to the aspiring Drakerider Nathan. Witnessing Warlon's cruel act of binding the dragon with his bola, Soren moves to intervene, halted by Rayla's intervention. Soren questions her reluctance, reminding her of her past as a Dragonguard. Despite her sorrow, Rayla remains resolute, emphasizing the urgency of their mission and the impossibility of saving everyone. She insists on pressing forward, instructing Soren to follow closely behind, but he remains behind, defying her plea. Upon returning to camp solo, Rayla initially fails to notice Soren's absence, casually dismissing it to Callum and Ezrin as his playful antics, speculating that he will soon return, regaling them with tales of his exploits. The Drakewood. Upon waking the next morning, Rayla realizes Soren's prolonged absence indicates he might be in jeopardy with the Drakeriders, not merely off on an adventure. She confides this to Callum, who questions why she didn't mention it earlier. Rayla admits she assumed he could handle himself. Before they delve further into discussion, Ezrin interrupts with news of a visitor, Zim, instructed by Zubia to stay behind. Rayla expresses frustration at Zim's presence, feeling it negates their current predicaments regarding Rex Igneous and Soren's disappearance, as the Dragon Queen poses a looming threat regardless. Callum, however, views Zim's arrival as an opportunity, suggesting they utilize Ezrin's mental connection with Zim to locate Soren. Zim is soon interrupted by the Drakeriders, leading the group to Nthan, the initiate elf who admits reluctance to harm Zim. Rayla informs him of their missing friend, Soren, and Nthan recalls him as the gourd guy who subdued Warlon. He discloses Soren's fate, having been cast into the pit of despair. Upon reaching the pit, Rayla despairs at finding Soren's armor, fearing he was devoured by the Drake Scarmaker. Callum, however, offers solace, suggesting Soren might still be alive, having taken an alternative path down the mountain. Beneath the surface, Nthan guides the group through the perilous path of despair, which entails traversing 3 zones of peril. Among these challenges is a bridge enveloped in darkness, fraught with perilous creatures sensitive to light. Rayla briefly enjoys herself by performing cartwheels, but the merriment ceases when Callum inadvertently drops a moon opal, triggering a reaction from the Key of Erebos. Later, during a break, Callum wakes Rayla for a private conversation. Initially assuming it pertains to their relationship, Rayla is taken aback when Callum instead asks her to end his life should Erebos ever seize control of him again. Shocked and appalled, Rayla vehemently declines, asserting that his fate remains in his own hands. However, Callum frets over the possibility of being consumed by darkness beyond his control. Rex Igneous. Team Zim reaches Umbra Tor and Rex Igneous's den, apprehensive about the potential conflict between Rex Igneous and Avizendum's son, Zim. Rayla recalls Runaan's past use of a disguise spell and decides to employ it on Zim. With the moon nexus too distant, Callum loans Rayla his moon opal to disguise Zim as a dog. Upon meeting Rex Igneous, they're taken aback when he demands gifts, a surprise they had not anticipated. Rayla offers her butterfly swords, her only possessions, but their offerings fail to impress the dragon. Perplexed, Rayla questions why their gifts aren't sufficient, to which Rex Igneous gestures to his vast treasures, expressing weariness with visitors and threatening them with death. However, Ezrin surprises him by offering a unique jelly tart made by Barius, catching the dragon's interest. Rayla and Callum then inform Rex Igneous of Claudia's plot to release Erebos, seeking the location of his prison. Surprisingly, Rex claims ignorance, though they suspect it's a riddle. Before they can dwell on this, Claudia arrives and uses her ocarina to cast a spell, causing all but Zim and herself to fall asleep. Escape from Umbra Tor. In Rayla's company is Soren, previously captured by her, Vera and Terry, and their enigmatic companion. Despite being ensnared by Terry's conjured vines, Soren maneuvers toward Rayla, hoping to rouse her. Zim's bite to Soren's foot initially puzzles him until the odor awakens Rayla, prompting her to liberate him, thankful and overjoyed at his survival. Rayla then attempts to awaken Rex Igneous by stabbing him, but the dragon, consumed by fury, mistakes her for an adversary, triggering a chaotic escape for all present. During their flight, Rayla notices Viren among their pursuers. With Callum's approval, she tails him and his group. Eventually, she seizes Terry, brandishing one of her butterfly swords at his throat in a bid to secure his life. Claudia counters with a sack of enchanted coins, revealing that they contain the souls of Rayla's parents, Tiadrin and Lain, and Runaan, her mentor. Despite Claudia's offer to exchange the souls for Terry's safety, Rayla rejects it. In a spiteful act, Claudia discards the bag into a lava flow, prompting Rayla to dive after it, catching it with Stella's help. However, her relief is short-lived as she discovers the bag contains only stones. Terry condemns Claudia's cruelty, prompting her to offer Rayla the genuine bag. Rayla and Stella escape Umbra Tor but are trapped under debris, requiring assistance from the group to free themselves. Upon liberation, Rayla receives a warm embrace from Callum, expressing his gratitude for her return, to which she responds with equal warmth, joined by the rest of the group in a heartfelt reunion. Book 5, Ocean, Domina Profundis. Rayla solemnly pledges to liberate her parents and Runaan from the enchantment of Viren's coins before concealing them within the portal crafted by Stella, deeming Callum unprepared to confront the truth about her family's plight. Expressing frustration at feeling powerless during the wait for Ezrin's return, she finds solace in Ezrin's reassurance, citing his diligent research at the library. Callum discloses his attempts to tap into the Ocean Arcanum, though Rayla urges him to explore vulnerabilities of Startouch elves in case their efforts to thwart Claudia and Viren falter. Later, Rayla covertly investigates her family's imprisonment in Callum's office with Stella's assistance, only to find it deserted and the hidden passage to Viren's chambers sealed behind the shepherd painting. Upon Callum's arrival, Rayla feigns innocence, pretending to seek him out. Locking the office door after they move to the hallway, Callum admits his failure to uncover information about Erebos or Startouch elves. Rayla reignites his curiosity by mentioning ancient lore, referring to Startouch elves as the first elves. As Callum hurries to the library, Rayla orchestrates a collision to allow Stella to snatch the office key. Using her blades, Rayla removes the nails obstructing the painting before Stella creates a portal, enabling them to venture into Viren's chambers at last. Rayla and Stella eventually locate the cell where Viren had imprisoned Runaan before proceeding to search for additional clues. There, they stumble upon a fourth enchanted coin containing a human, startling Rayla and causing her to recoil. Rayla is on the verge of retrieving the coin when she spots Runaan's bowblade, prompting her to break down in tears. Holding the bowblade, Rayla experiences a vision of her parents and Runaan silently urging her to prioritize safeguarding the world from Erebos before rescuing them. Upon returning to Callum's office, Rayla and Stella find themselves surrounded by Opeli and the Crown Guard. Held in the throne room, Rayla is released by the Crown Guard at Callum's behest, although she reveals that she had already freed herself from her restraints. As night descends upon Katalis, Rayla pays Callum a visit in his chamber, intending to explain her actions. However, Callum politely defers, suggesting she share when she feels ready while presenting her with the bowblade. Expressing gratitude, Rayla learns from Callum about their plan to seek information in the scrolls of the first elves housed in the Great Bookery of Lux Aurea. Agreeing to depart at sunrise, Rayla and Callum retire for the night along with the rest of the group. Old wounds. As Callum's group prepares to embark for Lux Aurea, Rayla remains groggy atop her Shadowpaw. However, a startled exclamation from Barius jolts her awake, causing the Shadowpaw to accidentally dislodge her onto the floor. Rayla and Callum are bestowed with hot brown morning potion and Barius' latest creation, Doios, as farewell gifts, while Opeli arranges to inform the Stormspire about their mission so that Ezrin's group can be kept updated on their progress at the Great Bookery. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, Rayla suggests making camp in the forest after covering considerable ground with the group. Callum, however, proposes spending the night at a nearby inn renowned for its complimentary breakfast. Initially hesitant, Rayla relents when she notices the pleading gazes of Callum, Bait, and Stella, teasingly labeling them softies. Departing from the inn the following day, Rayla expresses her appreciation for the accommodations and the breakfast they enjoyed. Callum is pleased to see Rayla's enjoyment and feels more hopeful as they approach the border on the horizon. Rayla observes that the new path created by Viren through the border resembles a scar inflicted by dark magic, but Callum views it as a bridge connecting Xadia and the human kingdoms. Agreeing, Rayla begins to see it as a healing wound, and she and Callum exchange smiles, symbolizing their growing optimism. As the night descends, Rayla and Callum sit beside their campfire, gazing up at stars while their mounts Bait and Stella drift off to sleep. They marvel at how Xadia and the human kingdoms assign different names and meanings to the constellations. What humans refer to as the Big Spoon and the South Star, the elves and dragons identify as Garlath the Annihilator and Leola's Last Wish, respectively. Gradually, Callum allows Rayla to snuggle closer as they continue admiring the starry sky. In the midst of their slumber, Rayla and Stella are roused by rustling noises emanating from the nearby bushes. Alert, Rayla wakes Callum and Bait just before they're confronted by a corrupted banther. Rayla swiftly intervenes, using her Shadowpaw to rescue Callum as the banther fatally injures his horse and moves to attack Bait. Scooping up Bait, Rayla evades the banther's pursuit while Callum takes the reins to allow her to shoot arrows at their assailant. Despite her efforts, none of Rayla's arrows find their target, until Stella offers her a special one adorned with a red crescent moon. Upon striking the banther, the arrow detonates, forcing the creature to abandon its pursuit. Rayla silently expresses her gratitude to Ethari as they resume their journey toward Lux Aurea. Nightmares and Revelations. Upon reaching the Sunfire Elf camp, Rayla, Callum, Bait, Stella, and their Shadowpaw are welcomed by Gren. He guides them to the royal tent, noting the harmonious coexistence between humans and elves in the camp despite occasional disagreements. Gren is taken aback when he realizes Rayla and Callum are unaware of Amaya's engagement to Janai, but opts to let them discover it themselves. Rayla is elated to hear about Amaya and Janai's upcoming marriage and proceeds to explain their mission to access the Great Library of Luxoria in search of a solution to defeat Erebos. However, Janai opposes their plan, forbidding anyone from journeying to Luxoria. Rayla expresses frustration and confusion, emphasizing their quest to save the world from an ancient evil. Despite the prohibition, she and Callum decide to sneak out of the camp, prompting Amaya, Gren, and Kazi to join them on their expedition. Eventually, Janai grants them her blessing before they set off the Great Bookery. Rayla and her companions traverse the deserted streets of Luxoria, listening as Amaya and Gren recount the city's fall to corruption. They explain how the Sun Forge's corruption transformed any remaining inhabitants into savage creatures, thwarting Janai's previous attempts to reclaim the city. These creatures, repelled by daylight, typically emerge at sundown, providing the group a narrow window for their task. Kazi guides them to the Great Bookery, reminiscing about their past as a university student with a penchant for clandestine reading spots. Meanwhile, Callum, Kazi, Bait, and Stella hasten to the upper levels section dedicated to Star-Touch elves, leaving Rayla, Amaya, and Gren below. As Rayla immerses herself in a book, Amaya extends an apology for their contentious encounter at the Banther Lodge, rooted in Amaya's initial biases against elves. She acknowledges her transformation after befriending and falling in love with Janai. Swiftly forgiving Amaya, Rayla listens as she vows to protect Callum fiercely. Rayla confides in Amaya and Gren, explaining her decision to leave Callum to shield him, believing she needed to be strong alone. Amaya shares her past struggle with loneliness after Sarai's death, highlighting her eventual realization that true strength lies in trust and sharing burdens with loved ones. Touched and inspired, Rayla embraces Amaya warmly, grateful for her guidance. Rayla stumbles upon Callum and Kazi rejoicing over the discovery of the Nova Blade, prompting her to seek a private conversation with Callum regarding her family trapped within Viren's coins. Callum assures her of his commitment to help, having come across a spell capable of reuniting separated spirits with their bodies. Subsequently, Rayla learns from Callum that acquiring Quasar diamonds housed in the Star Scraper along with the Nova Blade is essential for the spell. The group's horror mounts when they discover a corrupted Banther preying on their horses, prompting a swift decision to seek an alternate exit. Inadvertently causing a disturbance, Callum's actions draw more corrupted Banthers into the library. Despite Rayla's arrows, Callum's magic, and Amaya's swordplay, the onslaught intensifies as more corrupted Banthers encroach upon them. In a moment of despair, Zubia dramatically intervenes, crashing through the skylight to combat the corrupted creatures with her formidable strength and lightning abilities. Rayla's relief is palpable as she witnesses Amaya and Corvus finding refuge within the book drop amidst the chaos. Archmage Akiyu. Atop the Storm Spire's peak, Rayla finds herself in the midst of a debate between Callum and Ezrin over whether or not to seek out Akiyu, the tidebound elf archmage involved in constructing Erebos' prison, or to retrieve the Nova Blade from the Star Scraper. When the decision falls to her, Rayla feels the weight of being Team Zim's tiebreaker, a responsibility she finds irksome. Ultimately, she throws her support behind Ezrin's proposal to meet with Akiyu first. Upon reaching the tide pools where Akiyu resides, Rayla joins her companions in utilizing empty shells to elude hungry carrion gulls before encountering a tidebound elf named Tidebound Tina. Tina agrees to guide them to Akiyu upon learning of their quest to locate Erebos' prison. Opting against waiting at the entrance as Callum suggests, Rayla persuades him to swim alongside her as they follow Tina into an underwater passage. Their journey takes an unexpected turn when the corridor they traverse turns out to be the gullet of a massive sea creature. After Zim's intervention allows them to escape the creature's maw, Tina reveals herself as Akiyu and discloses the prison's location in the Sea of the Castout. Additionally, Akiyu furnishes them with an enchanted amulet upon learning of Claudia and Viren's schemes. As they await Zubia's return, Rayla grows anxious when the Dragon Queen fails to appear as anticipated. Bait and switch. Rayla guides Team Zim to a mist-shrouded dock along Zadia's eastern shores. With Zubia's notable absence, Rayla understands that securing a ship is imperative if they hope to reach Erebos' prison in the Sea of the Castout. Employing a whistle to summon the ferryman from the fog, Rayla receives a coin from Stella through her portal, paying the hooded figure for passage. Once aboard, Team Zim sets sail under the ferryman's guidance. Rayla informs her companions about their destination, an unsavory island town known as Bright Hope Cove by some, though more commonly referred to as Scumport. Upon arrival, Rayla advises Team Zim to blend in amidst the town's dubious characters to avoid drawing undue attention. Navigating through the bustling streets teeming with humans and elves, Rayla intervenes when Soren shows interest in purchasing oil from an earthbound elf vendor, emphasizing the importance of finding the right ship captain for their journey. Spotting a promising vessel named Sea Legs, Ezrin becomes intrigued, but Rayla reveals it belongs to Finnegrin, the tidebound elf ruler of Scumport. Deciding to seek Finnegrin's assistance, Ezrin and Callum depart with bait, while Rayla, Soren, Stella, and Zim continue their search for a willing ship captain bound for the southern seas. Rayla grows frustrated as her group struggles to secure a ship captain willing to ferry them to the Sea of the Castout. Moments later, Soren enters with news of finding the perfect captain for the journey. Her mood brightens as Soren describes the captain as a blind man, accompanied by a pet parrot, none other than Vileds and Birdo. Despite the discovery, Ezrin opts to remain in Scumport, intent on reclaiming something from Finnegrin's possession. Rayla aids in the heist by procuring Finnegrin's keys, which she then passes to Zim. Together with Team Zim, Rayla sets sail aboard the Ruthless, where she marvels over the 3 rescued baby glowtoads. Later, she discovers that Viled's new first mate is the winged skywing elf Nyx. Sea Legs. Rayla listens as Vileds and Nyx discuss who should captain the Ruthless, then she and Callum disclose their mission to prevent Erebos' liberation. She assists in rescuing Soren, who jumps overboard to save the baby glowtoad hat from a hungry leviathan. Upon learning of Finnegrin's pursuit on Sea Legs, Rayla proposes hiding the Ruthless in a nearby fog bank, a plan Callum swiftly supports with a spell. As Callum becomes exhausted after casting Lapis Kaylee to disrupt Sea Legs, Rayla rushes to his side. She backs Viled's decision to navigate through Garlath's teeth, but their progress is interrupted when Sea Legs, revealed as a giant hermit crab, catches up and causes the Ruthless to crash. Finnegrin then captures Rayla and her companions. Finnegrin's Wake. Rayla's fury ignites as Finnegrin parades a bruised and battered Callum onto the deck of the Sea Legs, prompting Elmer to command her to sit. When Finnegrin demands to know whose hand will pay for the theft of the baby glowtoads, Rayla offers her own, recalling her past injury. She urges Callum to refrain from dark magic as she covertly frees herself using a splinter from Elmer. However, before she can retaliate, Finnegrin immobilizes her with Venus Frigoris, causing her excruciating pain, and Callum rushes to her aid. Enraged, Callum strikes Finnegrin, stunning Elmer and the crew. Finnegrin orders Elmer to subdue Callum, planning to feed Rayla to a leviathan with bait as bait. As Rayla faces the leviathan, Callum breaks free and uses his magic to rescue her. Finnegrin prepares to torture Callum again, but Soren convinces Elmer to rebel against his tyrannical leader. Rayla and Vileds confront Nyx for her betrayal, but Nyx reveals she duped Finnegrin into sailing into the Sea of the Castout by fabricating a story about treasure hunting. Approaching Callum, Rayla playfully teases him about his connection to 2 primal sources before sensing his subdued demeanor. Callum reassures her, but keeps his secret of using dark magic to himself as they share a silent embrace. Infantis Sanguine. Rayla and the remaining members of Team Zim opt for a rowboat to venture into the depths of the Sea of the Castout, as Ezrin unveils the true location of Erebos' prison. Discovering that the prison lies at the sea's bed, Callum recognizes the enchantment on the amulet bestowed by Akiyu, granting underwater breathing. Acknowledging his uncertainty in locating the prison alone, Callum inscribes the amulet's runes onto his, Ezrin's, and Rayla's necks before invoking a spell. While Callum and Ezrin activate the spell successfully, Rayla's dread of drowning compels her to remain aboard the rowboat. Offering her support, Rayla encourages Callum and Ezrin to proceed while she stays with Soren, Stella, Bait, Zim, Sneasel's hat, and Jellybug. Eventually, Rayla resolves to confront her fear and joins Stella in a plunge into the Sea of the Castout to aid Callum and Ezrin against Claudia's threats. Amidst the confrontation, Rayla aims arrows at Claudia, prompting retaliation as Claudia attempts to strangle her. In a pivotal moment, Stella's portal intervention grants Rayla access to her bowblade, allowing her to sever the tentacle ensnaring her. Claudia's agony leads to the inadvertent release of Callum and Ezrin. Seizing the opportunity, Callum destroys Claudia's potion, compelling her retreat to the surface as its effects wane. Reunited, Rayla, Callum, Ezrin, and Stella embrace before advancing toward the colossal clam housing Erebos' prison, a radiant white pearl. Upon their return to the rowboat, Rayla, Callum, Ezrin, and Stella reunite with their companions, beholding the remarkable pearl crafted to confine Erebos within. And that, my friends, is the life of Rayla. So far, I'm sure there's more stories to be told here. So, what did you think? Did we hit all the major details? What's your favorite Rayla moment? Do you think she made the right choice in seeking revenge? What do you think will happen next? Make sure you like this video if you like it and subscribe for more.